afternoon, everybody. DM Geezer Jim here. We are continuing along on our RTFM Read the Frickin' Manual, our audiobook exploration of one of my favorite titles for all of D&D, personally, Uncaged Faces of Sigil. Hopefully you've been keeping up with it so far. We're continuing along in the series. I'm a big fan of Planescape, as probably many of you guys know. This is one of the best books to really, in my opinion, to really embrace the city of Sigil, to really embrace the feel, the weirdness, the uniqueness, and it's an outstanding source for NPC stories, non-player character stories, and certainly adventure hooks as well. So let's get into it. Our next NPC that we're looking at our next character is Black Marian. First, a body hears the music. Soft, dulcet tones slink and drift through the lady's ward, tugging at each Burke's ears, whispering for him to come closer. Beneath the music, a sweet soprano sings haunting ballads in a perfect key. Step further into the ward, and the flute-like voice and hypnotic music grows louder, clearer, as the ethereal trail pulls the curious to its source, the singing fountain. Sprawling grandly between the city court, the palace of the jester, and the 12 Factals Tavern, the fountain is a marvel. Above a circular stone pool fully 100 feet across, dozens of tilting metal basins rise high into the sky, each catching the falling waters from the basin above. The basins ring with unique musical pitches, delicate mixtures of violins and voices in full bloom. It's soothing as a celestial choir. But no matter how much the peals resonate in the body's bones, it's the priestess Black Marian who draws him in with her songs. And it's only Black Marian who sees, or more correctly hears, the future of those who drink from the pool. Not one blood in Sigil can remember a time when Black Marian wasn't the keeper of the singing fountain. Of course, some may know, but choose not to tell. But the slender priestess of Braji looks to be a shade under 30 years old, with dewy milk-white skin that glistens with the reflected ripples of the pool. A few leatherheads think that the fountain's waters must be an elixir of youth, but such a claim's never been proven. Graceful and lithe, the priestess glides about as freely as a will-o'-wisp in an airy white cloak. Fine flaxen hair flows like a hood of corn silk down the middle of her back. Fact is, only her large eyes, with both iris and pupil the same cold, dark shade of ebony, lends truth to her name. Whenever the pale green-gray feathers of Sigil's pigeons clog the fountain's pools, souring its perfect melodies with dissonant plaintive chords, Marian collects and dries the feathers. On occasion, she hands one or two to sods who come to hear her music. They're greatly honored by the gift. Of course, she generally pins the feathers to her cloak and wears them in her hair. In hot weather, when pigeons flock around the fountains for days at a time, Marian's so covered with discarded feathers she looks more like a swan may than a human. Some say Black Marian is more than human. Her singing voice that enchant even a siren. The hunter Adamok Eben likens the hypnotic sounds of the Balena to the song sharks that swim in the river Oceanus. As Marian, a worshipper of the song of God, tends to the fountain, she sways like a cloud and sings gorgeous, compelling ballads in delicate harmony with the music of the basins. From time to time, she augments her performance with a variant of the enthrall spell, which guarantees a rapt audience for the duration of her song. Even without the spell, the alluring tapestry of sounds draws crowds by the dozens each day. The priestess considers herself a public entertainer. She depends on the audience for her living. For a price, she divines the future of anyone who drinks from the pool's water. If a customer balks at the floating feathers, she offers to cast Purify Food and Drink first. She keeps a silver ladle tied to her belt under her cloak. When a customer steps forward, he takes the ladle, dips it in the pool, and drinks the cup full down. When next he opens his mouth to speak, instead of words, wondrous music, much like that heard from the singing fountain, issues forth. Newcomers in the crowd usually gasp at this point, but Marian bids them be silent with a wave of her hand. After a few moments spent listening, Marian hears the customer's future in the music and whispers it into their ear. A donation of 5 silver pieces buys the Burke knowledge of the next day, 25 buys the next week, and 50 buys the next month. How's it work? With a cool air of mystery, Marian just smiles at the question. The knowledge belongs to Braji, she offers in soft-spoken tones. He merely shares it with me. Of course, not all locals are convinced. Some think that Marian's an incarnation of the Norns, Norse powers who dwell in the Outlands. The same folk assert that the singing fountain somehow linked to the Norns' Well of Erd, perhaps by a portal at the bottom of the pool, though no one's come forth with a gate key. Those who hold to this belief never cross Marian, afraid that the fates may punish them if they do. And they never drink from the fountain, aware of the cautionary tales that sods who look into the well of Erd come to regret doing so. But not everyone considers this luminescent, whispering, thin woman a threat. Every crowd boasts a few Burks eager to buy the future with coins. Plenty of folk, especially those facing the trials in the nearby city courts, do it just for luck. Fact is, singing with the fountain has become something of a ritual for many travelers passing through the ladies' ward, especially when they need a bit of good fortune. Marian's gentle, understated approach guarantees her a booming business. When she smiles, every Burke in the crowd sure it's meant directly for them. Sometimes one of Marian's smiles or songs is meant for a particular cutter. Spies and operatives in the cage often use Marian to pass secrets back and forth, hiring her to weave messages into her ballads. Now and then she'll even pass a few words for an adventurer who doesn't trust his message to a common courier. And the Celestials who covertly deal arms in the blood war, Koi, Tripicus, and Cerilli, rely on the priestess to pass codes to clients, suppliers, and each other. It's from them that Marian picked up her Mace of Disruption. They figured it'd help against any fiends who took issue with the delivery of payment, or a payment. Marian asks for little in return, pleased that imparting knowledge through song is a form of devotion to Raji. Of course, Marian doesn't take on jobs for evil Burks, using no alignment, if need be, to screen potential employers. Most sods in a crowd wouldn't pick up on Marian's communications, even if they knew enough to try. The priestess buries them under so many layers of metaphor and imagery that sometimes even the intended recipients fail to catch the dark. Though she doesn't set out to confuse the listeners, their bafflement always brings a sly smile to her lips. After all, if a sod's too dim to comprehend the message, it's not her responsibility to enlighten him. With the jinx she collects from the fortune-telling, Marian buys herself a meal in a small room each evening at one of the number of inns near the fountain. Lately, her kip of choice is the Dusty Wig, a spit-shine boarding house for judges and advocates who need to hole up close by the city court for morning duty. Fact is, the inn's owner, Biala, a plainer, half-elf believer of the source, always holds a room for her faction comrade, whether Marian actually shows up or not. They are part of the believers of the source. No matter where she stays, each morning the priestess takes whatever jinx left over to the hive, where she gives it to the poor or to the bleaknik songsmiths struggling to find their muses. She usually drops a few dozen coins in the hat of the musical Fenzir twins, Morven and Phineas. Love those guys. Morven's sure that Marian's helplessly enamored of his retching verse, but his brother's mournful accompaniment on Haller's skull and mephit drum that really grabs the seer's attention. Once she's emptied her pockets, Marian returns to the singing fountain in the ladies' ward. There she starts to clean the knight's feathers and other refuse from the water, preparing to draw in the new crowds. The priestess has more or less good relations with her business neighbors, except for one particularly irksome basher, Autochon the bell ringer. At first, when Marian heard he'd slung a few choice insults her way, she figured the Burke was just annoyed with her, as he is with everybody, for making more noise. Autochon's already got to contend with having become a walking jingle bell himself thanks to the armor given to him by Shemeshka the Marauder, not to mention the distant but endless tolling of the bells from the Temple of the Abyss. Of course, that's dark to most folks in the ward. They just know that Autochon's got a perpetual headache and likes things kept quiet. But the real reason for his bile ain't the fact that Marian sings, it's what she sings. When she passes secret chant through song, Autochon sees it just an oh-so-clever way of horning in on his courier service. After all, he's got the best messengers in the city. Just ask Autochon. What's more, since Marian's not worried about earning jink or losing her business, she can't be bankrupted, like so many of Autochon's competitors were one way or another. Marian's aware of the bell ringer's frustration with her. She's pretty sure that he, or one of his bashers, is responsible for a few odd problems that have plagued her of late. For example, she's recently returned from a night's sleep at the Dusty Wig to find the singing fountain completely clogged with feathers. Only a muffled, tinny sound issued from its choked basins. Such a whopping accumulation of feathers overnight was enough to make anyone peery. But the fact that many weren't from pigeons at all, but from a variety of exotic birds, wastrel sympathetics, and others never even seen in Sigil before or since, letting her know that foul play was the cause. Of course, the stuffing of the fountain didn't stop Marian for long. Most every sod in the ladies' ward noticed that the daily music had dried up, and half of them beat a path to the fountain to see what had happened. Regulars from her crowds pitched in to clean the basins, as did the owner of nearby shops and other kips. The fountain music is great for their businesses. When the job was done, most neither said the fountain nor Marian had ever sounded more beautiful. Unfortunately, Otto-chan's not the only Burke troubling the priestess. The advertising pitchman Harris Hatches is bad news of a more overt variety. The excitable man so animated, so loud, so driven that he sets Marian's usually unflappable nerves on edge. Once or twice a day, he stops by the fountain and worms his way into the gathered crowd, watching as Marian entertains. She knows he's out there, too, by his uniquely exuberant response when she's finished with song or a fortune. Naturally, he's the loudest Burke in any group, surely whistling and cheering with his arms waving over his head. C. Harris is campaigning to get Marian to work for him, singing promotional tunes to his clients for her crowds. "Marian," he burbles, "you could sell virtue to a diva." She doesn't take this as a compliment. Although she spends her days in public as a warm, welcoming presence, Marian's more or less a loner. Would-be paramours who get close enough to look straight into her eyes walk away shivering, muttering that they saw the entire multiverse staring back at them. The dark of it is that Marian's odd eyes, big black marbles in ovals of cream, are linked to her previous lifetime. Before her current incarnation, Marian, a godsman who believes that true ascension comes only after a string of successful lifetimes, swam in the river Oceanus as a Delphon. The Delphons, or song sharks, are exquisite creatures whose song is said to impart the wisdom of the plains to those who tumble to its meaning. The singing fountain itself is linked by a gossamer thread to the sweet waters of Oceanus, which accounts for its mystical musical properties, and Marian finds herself drawn to the structure like a sunfly to light. Although the priestess truly believes her powers of divination stream from Braji, she's occasionally haunted by hazy dreams of her former life. And that's the story of Black Marian. Outstanding non-player character that can serve so many features. If you're just here for the audiobook, appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed the story, and hopefully you come back for more. We're going to go through the entirety of this text as another audiobook, and then we'll switch to other stuff after that. But if you're here for commentary, if you're here for adventure ideas, I don't think you need to tell me very much. I don't think you need me to give you many things. The way this story is staged out, her connections to the various factals and the various other bigger personalities within the city, and the fact that she serves the public overall, message giver, quest hub, friend of the people, friend of the players. You'll have so many. Black Marian becomes indispensable for a campaign within Sigil or Sigil, however you want to pronounce it, providing that your players are of neutral or good alignment. She works alongside of that. She's involved in the blood war. She's involved in the to an extent in the factions that want to remove outsiders from the city. She can and will pass messages for any of the good aligned factions, yet she's not aligned with Otto-chan. She doesn't work alongside Harris, so she is a safe message delivery. Great, outstanding non-player character, especially if you have bards in your group. Romance, her connection with the Hive and Morvis and Phineas, Morvin and Phineas, which we'll get to their story soon. She's just a very well-connected non-player character that really serves no threat, so you don't necessarily have to worry about preparing for combat situations when using Black Marian in your campaigns as a message giver. She's always going to be safe because the city loves her. People love her. So in that essence, she becomes indispensable. But really quick, we'll look at her stats. As they were given in 2nd edition terms, translate to 5e as necessary. She's just a level 5 priestess, which would be a level 5 cleric. Follows Braji, planar human, armor class 10, which would be same thing in 1e to 5e, believe it or not. Average movement, low hit points, not a melee combatant, but she does have a Mace of Disruption, which, regardless of your edition, is a pretty good item. Other than that, she's got a slight bonus to mind-affecting spells. You'd give her advantage against charm, give her advantage on wisdom and intelligence saving throws, basically. But she knows the future of anyone who drinks from the singing fountain. The DM may treat this as the psionic ability of precognition, or use Marian's ability to hint at upcoming adventures for PCs. You can, if you're more designed, if your campaign design is more around railroading, for lack of a better term, around a linear adventure, she's very, very useful to be able to deliver that as a prophecy, a foresight. Uh, if your players are kind of hurting for clues, if you run a little bit more of a sandbox campaign, but they struggle with picking up the leads, decision paralysis potentially, Marian can be used to reinforce one or two of the paths that you would desire for your players to follow, or that they need to get to their next steps, so to speak. But yeah, she role playing tips are listed as well. Each of the non-player characters will have this sidebar that gives us as dungeon masters the opportunity, the information to help us run them. But yeah, she's found in the Singing Fountain and a nearby inn in the evening. She's just in a small radius. She's always going to be located near the Singing Fountain, whether it's at it or in a nearby inn sleeping away, aside from when she goes to the hive to make her morning donations. She comes off as mysterious, intelligent, soft-spoken seer. She lures passerbys in with her singing and works the crowd in a friendly manner as an accomplished entertainer. Mechanically, you can make your players make spells saves versus spells if you wanted to force the encounter. Not necessarily that it's a harmful thing, but just this enchanting voice. You just can't get it out of your head. You feel drawn to the source of this singing, this almost this magical chiming of it sounds like a harps being played, and you realize the harp like music is the sound of water dripping from one basin of a fountain to the next, striking in just the perfect point to make the dulcet tone of a ringing of a bell that rings through the crowd in concert with the voice of this angelic voice of this singer. It just seems to draw you into the crowd, and as you look at her and she looks across the crowd, your eyes lock with these dark, almost just ebony black marbles is swimming in a sea of whiteness as they look at you. Draw your characters in with role play, with a little bit of dialogue, and then they will be able to connect with Marian in a positive manner, and you'll be able to use Black Marian in your Planescape based campaigns within Sigil to drive quests, to give information, and in a positive as an ally. Not everything has to be antagonistic, and Black Marian is designed as a friendly character for good aligned parties. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it off there. Great story, great read. Thank you so much for your time, whether you've been here first time in. Like, follow, subscribe, push those buttons, join us, but continue joining us for the series. I'm going to start spending a little bit more time I like doing the audiobooks. It reinforces it in my mind. It's an opportunity to share information with people that may not have the time or the resources to read through it. And hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. More importantly, likes, follows, subscribes, all that. Join us over on my Twitch channel if you guys ever want to talk about this stuff live. See you soon.